Welcome to Inside the 90. This is the podcast where we dig into what it's like to live inside the 90-day world. And very excited here to have Dave Feidner with us. Dave is in Southfield, Michigan, where it's a little bit cloudy. So we're going to bring some sunshine to him today and bring him some energy in this conversation. What we're going to do today is we're just going to have a freestyle conversation. So we're going to talk a lot about EOS, but really just a conversation about what's on Dave's mind, what he's seeing in the world of EOS, and then we'll just see where it goes from there. So, Dave, thanks for joining me today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So we talked just a second ago about, what's a big issue. And you mentioned that you've got an issue that's been weighed on you, something that you've been working on. And I've got an issue that I see that comes up in EOS all the time, but yours intrigued me. So you said the word flywheel. What do you mean by that? Why are you so excited about it?
So the term is very common. I mean, we throw it out a lot. But if you were to ask a client to describe their flywheel, to put it out on a whiteboard or even to show you a printed copy of it, they might show you the proven process, which is a different thing because the proven process is a customer journey. But the flywheel is their business model. It's how the various components come together and create a virtuous cycle. And the reality is most of them have not done the intellectual work to figure out what that thing looks like.
So but I guess I left out too, just quick intro. So you're an implementer. So let's back up and tell me really quick, what's when did you discover EOS? How long have you been an implementer?
I discovered EOS sort of 7-8 years ago, and I've been an EOS implementer for 6 years. I built a network of companies in Europe and Latin America and did a big exit probably 10 years ago, well, more than 10 years ago now. And I did not know about EOS, but I had bought a lot of companies through that phase of building. And many of the folks that I didn't buy came looking for help and became consulting clients of mine. And so it was through them that I learned about EOS. And because I was familiar with Vern Harnish's stuff and had used Rockefeller habits in my own businesses, EOS was a nice transition for me. And I became an EOS implementer. So
what part of the journey that's led to this recent idea about the Jim Collins flywheel idea and Good to Great? Like when did you start pairing that with EOS?
So if you go and if you look at Good to Great, and you can find the components of the tools, they're tied into the discoveries that came out of Good to Great. But we do not, the pieces that are missing, so for example, you could argue level 5 leadership, which is literally the very beginning of Good to Great. We really do not grab that concept and bring it into any tools or express it in any fine way, but it is actually rocket fuel in its essence.
Yep.
But then it's not explicitly stated, nor is there anything that we explicitly state about the flywheel itself. All right. So Jim Collins himself did not really model this thing out in any great detail in the book Good to Great, but he did in a subsequent book that's called Turning the Flywheel. And you can get this book. It's literally like 30 pages long, and it can show you how to construct your actual model and test it to find out if this thing really is your flywheel or not.
So what if someone's in EOS, they've got a VTO, they're getting traction. At what point is the right time to start thinking about how the flywheel gets built out?
Yeah, so it's a very valid question, and the answer is I have no idea. My belief is once you have mastered the tool, you've mastered the intellectual discipline to be able to deal with a concept like that. If you attempt to do that without the intellectual discipline, So for example, you really haven't constructed an accountability chart yet, so you don't have a structure that you're confident is going to produce, good answers to tough questions, or you don't have the discipline of rocks or a scorecard in place. It's going to be a lot harder for you to take the intellectual concept of something called the flywheel and model that out and have it actually be meaningful for you. Never having actually taken the team through it, though, I have no idea. My confidence would be higher with the team that really was executing well on getting rocks done and just had that cadence. They were strong in most of the components so that they could take something like this and really innovate from it.
So you said intellectual discipline, and I guess I've heard that, but I haven't really thought about it in the concept of EOS. Do you find that is what percentage of customers that you've worked with or people that you've seen run successfully on EOS, would you say really it came down to their intellectual discipline?
Yeah. So can I answer that question in a different way?
Yeah, please.
Because it's probably easier if I just explain what I mean by intellectual discipline. In Turning the Flywheel, there is a story right within the first few pages about Amazon. And it was right around the time of the dot-com crash. And the leadership team of Amazon came to Jim Collins and his team, because Jim Collins and his team, of course, had done the research behind Good to Great and all the other books. And they specifically dealt with and modeled out the flywheel concept for Amazon. And of course, at that time, they were a much simpler business than they are right now. But you can then see the stages that the organization went through from that point in time and how that flywheel continued to be the flywheel that evolved and eventually created this company that now has, I don't know, $1 trillion valuation. It's just at a completely different scale from what it was back then. But that was literally, you can see that application of the model being, in that situation, and an organization taking a situation where the industry was at strife, other companies were failing, and they simply applied the intellectual discipline to figure out in those circumstances how to actually get good and eventually become great.
So you on that, we didn't look at what's on the wall behind you, but you were like,
right.
hey.
So why am I stuck on this concept?
Yeah.
So let me explain to you why, okay? In the world of being an EOS implementer, you ultimately have to figure out what your unique ability is. And here's why. It is great that amongst your skills is the ability to get up in front of a team and actually teach, facilitate, and coach them to the outcomes that they desire. You also have to figure out, how do you attract more of them to you? And that's going to be different for each implementer, because each of us have a different set of, we have different talents. We have we're not the same people. We're not robots.
Yeah,
we really are not, And so I had to do a lot of intellectual work to understand what my unique ability was, to the point of going through strategic coach, doing the unique ability modeling, doing a ton of assessments on myself, plugging this stuff into an AI bot to ultimately get narrowed down to, okay, what is the essence of my unique ability? And so within my implementer community friends, they have helped me define it as this thing called Philosopher Dave. So that's the other name that my EOS implementer friends call me. It's Philosopher Dave.
Yeah.
And it's because I have this tendency to read a lot of books, to gather a lot of wisdom, and then to dispel it, to distribute it. And so when I did all that, and I figured out ultimately that is the thing, that is the set of tools that I use to build relationships that then build referrals, that then build clients. It starts to become clear what that model needs to look like. So you want to see what's on the whiteboard?
I would love to. I'm a whiteboard guy. So
so here's the whiteboard. All right. What you'll see on the whiteboard is Amazon's flywheel. All right. And then there's the philosopher Dave flywheel. So this is actually what it looked like, and it's probably, too hard for you to actually read this. But that was Amazon's, and that's what they essentially multiplied on. And then I figured out what mine was.
So walk us through that. What are the 4 phases of or stages of the flywheel there?
All right. So I will attempt to zoom in here.
There you go.
Okay, so here's the piece that I had to figure out that to be clear for myself. And that is the wisdom gathering and dissemination. All right. So, okay, put that at the top of the flywheel. You curate and distribute wisdom. That activity then builds and grows relationships, both from a quantity standpoint and from a depth standpoint. From that, you build essentially a referral machine. And by referral machine, I mean in both directions. Getting really good with those relationships so that they are, value creating relationships. That then creates clients, and the benefit with clients is you then get more opportunities for curating and distributing of wisdom. That's in essence the model.
And that, for you specifically, that first step of curating and disseminating wisdom, I would assume that first step is because that's who you are and what you've always done before EOS or anything else. So that was your foundational element.
That was the thing that I had to get clear in my mind, because that's an activity that brings me joy and energy. So I could do it, all day. And the thing is, when you can figure out that thing that you love to do, that you're great at, and how it fits into your flywheel, then it's a lot easier to focus your time and energy on activities that produce the results.
That is awesome. As you said, you haven't done this, so imagine it. If you have clients today, someone that you're actively working with, where's the beginning of your conversation to dig to help them figure out what's the beginning of that flywheel look like? What's that foundational element for them?
So it starts with the core focus, because in that is the purpose, and in that is also the organizational superpower. I have not taken a client through this exercise.
Okay.
Make no mistake about it. I have not taken a client through this exercise, but having gone through the exercise myself, I certainly would challenge some of them to at least read this and consider it as something for them to study as a team. There is a saying that the greatest danger in business and life lies not in our outright failure, but in achieving success without understanding why you were successful in the first place. And sometimes what I find is hey, we're successful. We know we're successful. There's some foundational thing there, but we haven't articulated in the manner of some kind of virtuous cycle that we can build off of.
No, that's really cool. And you, when we were talking about what was your issue, and you talk about really being hot on this flywheel idea, and I said the issue that I have or I see that's kind of top of mind for me right now is, and this is so I got introduced to EOS 6.5 years ago. I was brought in to be an integrator with an organization that was very purpose driven. The founder, Adam, he had core values in 2000, right? He has his entire existence as a human is around core values and finding your purpose. And then he wanted to find a way to get, to build an organization that could help other organizations do that, and then help the people inside his own teams do that. Yeah. And I call myself patient zero because I came in as this integrator in an agency. He was an accountant. I'm an ad agency guy. By roles, he's much more of an integrator, right? He's an accountant by background. He's math and spreadsheets and process, and I'm an ad creative. I'm much more visionary and the big ideas. And we knew that going in, and I kind of said going in, I didn't know what EOS was, but I was at a point in my career where I was like, I've been an entrepreneur. I just want to be somebody's little buddy. I want to come along beside them and help their business be more successful. And that, was the opening conversation where he was like, well, there's this integrator thing, and this is what I need, and why don't you come do this with me? So that there we had an organization that was founded on core values. And then we were helping our clients, nothing to do with EOS, but establish brand and strategy. And when I paired the really foundational element of core values with 20 years of helping large and small organizations figure out their brand strategy and what makes them different and who they are, I realized that those two things are not, you can't separate them. And as we got into EOS and really talk about that, the VTO in the beginning is, why do we exist and what do we value? I have at one point I would say I have doubled down. Now I'm like tripled down or like exponentially doubled down on the idea that is the thing that allows organizations to gain traction, is when you start EOS and you get your core values defined. In all the podcasts that I've done so far, without leading anyone to it, when you talk about what was the moment, everybody comes back to core values. And so that idea of the flywheel, right? It's like, who are we and what do we do and how do we start getting this momentum? I do think EOS does a really good job of laying that foundation to where it's like we've got our VTO, we understand who we are, we understand who we value, we understand our core focus and our target market. Then what I get super excited about is then activating that, right? It's like, all right, so now how from the building a brand from the inside out, how do we take an organization who has core values and get them, to equip their team internally to where they understand that those values are authentic and they're real and people feel them and it doesn't feel forced and it's not integrity and honesty and it's up on the wall and people don't really pay attention to them. And so how do you go from there to actually then, building a brand externally that's attached to those foundational core values? So that's the beginning of my flywheel goes back to my passion is building brands from the inside out. And I decided to start an agency when I was like, I'm not going to start another agency. I don't want to do that again. But it was through when I actually
Who would do such a crazy thing?
Yeah. It's like it's the land of corporate misfits. It's chaos all the time, and it just so happens that I thrive in that environment. But but it really was that the clarity for me, and I give Adam some credit for this because he kind of held me accountable and at the same time walked beside me as I was trying to figure out what I was going to do on my own. I basically said, I'm going to start a business and I don't know what it is yet, but I'm going to live in 90-day cycles and I have a 10-year target and I'm just personally going to work towards that. But it was that clarity of we exist to build brands from the inside out. And like that single line allows me to work with someone who's running on EOS where they have the foundation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you bring up just a fascinating point because the outcome is a brand strategy, right? So let's just imagine that you're doing it with an organization that does not have the organizational self-awareness that comes from knowing and defining and living their core values. What are you building that brand awareness, that brand strategy on the back of? There's something that you have to build it on.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah, and I would say it's done a lot, but I would say that those brands don't. I say if your employees believe it, your customers will buy it, and so if your employees are just showing up for work every day for a paycheck and they're not bought into the bigger picture, then that value, the values and the vision may not be super clear. You can still have a highly successful company, right?
Jamie, I've actually lived this, right? Because I had the mistake of having to, build out a brand strategy for my own organization without those underpinnings. And I could tell you it went through iterations that kind of went this direction and that direction and this direction. And without it, being firmly rooted in an understanding of who we were at our core, it could kind of like ping all over the places. Well, there was also a visionary named me who was doing this, but yes, when we did get clear on this, then everything that followed made sense.
Yeah, so
you have to start at that level.
So, this wasn't intended to be a brand conversation, but it's evolved into that now. So do you think that flywheel, the idea of, the Collins idea of a flywheel, also the idea of, getting traction, like that foundational element of who you are and why you exist is true for all three things? EOS, you got to know that. That's what makes a successful organization that's got traction and healthy, vision, traction, and healthy. Jim Collins' idea of the flywheel, right? It's like, all right, you've got to get those components right. But then both of those are totally dependent upon, as I say, brand is an interaction and marketing is an activity. And it's like those interactions that you're creating, whether it's your employee parking in the parking lot and walking into their job, right? Or whether it's a customer coming to your website, like all those interactions go all the way back to the beginning of that VTO or the early stage of creating that flywheel.
Yeah. Well, these are the way that people show up. This is a common set of behaviors and norms. And there's always the thing about core values is they are unique for every organization. They are an expression, a unique expression of something that's virtuous. There's never a core value that isn't rested in virtue. Right? There's always some virtuous underpinning for any core value, regardless of what the title it is. So when people are showing up, they're showing up as their best when they exhibit those core values. So it is the virtuous best expression of the organization. Knowing that is extremely helpful in everything else that you do.
Yeah.
It's also extremely helpful to see what happens when the organization is put under stress, because stress is what triggers people. And when people get triggered, they violate their core values. So when the organization is under stress, you really test the core values. The more the core values hold up under stress, the more you are living them.
What if there's someone today who, they've got their core values, they don't know if they're right. Let's just say they haven't tested them. They don't know if that's right. They're just not sure what to do with them. Like, what's your process for coaching a client through really getting their core values defined?
It shows up right here in the session room. It shows up in conflict resolution. It shows up in their 90-minute meetings as a leadership team every week. Are we, with the behaviors that we're exhibiting right now, and we're not always our best in this room. I mean, there's crying, there's yelling, there's, it can get into some deep confrontation sometimes because the issues are tough and sometimes there's emotion involved. And when emotion is involved, people get triggered. And when you get triggered, guess what? You're probably not showing up as your best. You're going to be violating your own core values.
So, but from a language perspective, how do you get clients to, is there an exercise? How do you get them, the leadership team, aligned on, all right, we feel this way, but when we put words to them, those words match what we feel and believe?
Okay, so I'm going to give you another example. Okay, this one was a lot of fun. So I had a team that has a core value called diplomacy. All right, that was the word, and they had it written into the core value speech, and they had a wonderful description around it. The problem was they weren't really paying a lot of attention to what they had written in terms of a description. They simply pulled the diplomacy card out anytime they wanted to avoid a conversation that needed that. So it was a wonderful core value expressed very, very elegantly and actually defined very, very well that instead just became the default condition for avoiding stuff. And it showed I had to call it out. I mean, guys, this is what we're doing. We have just basically institutionalized avoidance through this one core value. And it was fun when we discovered this, and everybody had a great laugh and they were able to fine tune it. But it shows up because you hold the mirror up when they are in conflict so that they can see when they are acting the opposite. And from that, you're able to say, okay, do I actually have this core value written correctly? Do I have it defined correctly? Are my behaviors consistent with doing this? Am I using the wrong examples? All those things.
What? So I think this may be a Pat Lencioni idea, but that a core value is something that can't be pushed too far. So that's what I try to get clients to test. Is people say, well, honesty and integrity, because no one's going to say, I don't want to work with Dave, he's too honest, or I don't want to work with Jamie, he's got too much integrity. Like those, that everyone wants those. So when you think about like diplomacy, my challenge to a client would be like, all right, what's it look like to push that too far? And can it be pushed too far? And it's so funny you say this. I have a client right now who are working on their brand strategy and diplomacy as one of their core values. And but it's a totally different context. Their idea is that it's courageous conversations with tact. So they're actually putting but in that, it may be actually that the greater value is courageous conversations, right? It's like you've got that behavior that you're saying lives it out may sometimes actually need to be moved up. And then if you live that behavior out, then you're demonstrating diplomacy, but the value may be something different.
Yeah, I mean, it's like radically candid, right? Yeah. You have to be clear what the heck that means, that there is not only brutal honesty, but there's love. Yeah. You have to have both those things, right? For that to actually to be a valid, to be an example. You have to embody both of those things for that to fit that core value.
Yeah, and that's so funny because that was one of Adam's core values is radical candor. And words matter, right? When you start having these values and you can actually split hairs over them, you really understand the meaning. But his thing is, I expect everyone to be honest. What I'm asking for you is to be candid. And so yeah, that's and it's fun. I really get excited when clients get in these conversations and they do split the hairs and they end up with these words and they're like, hey, this feels right. And the first time that they do it, I'm always like, all right, cool. We have what we call essence. Now let's marinate in that for 90 days, and let's test against those and see how they feel. And I tell everybody, and when it comes to core values in the VTO, everything's written in pencil because every 90 days you're reevaluating it and sharpening that pencil and getting smarter and smarter. And there will come a time where you feel like these are tried and true and they're tested and they get fully baked. But it is it's a process.
So I will give you one other test that you can put your core values through. All right. There is this concept of level 5 leadership. It's in Good to Great, and it is this combination of personal humility and just crystal clear focus and determination towards the greater good. But here's where the humility of level 5 leadership comes in. I use this example with my leadership teams because for that group of individuals, and usually, but more specifically, the visionary of the business, they have to be the role models. So those core values, they have to live up to them. They have to be the embodiment of them. And there is a way for them to do that is consistent with level 5 leadership. It's called literally telling the team that you're human. Telling the team, like, for example, Mr. Visionary, are you willing to get up in front of the organization at the state of the company meeting, give the core value speech, and then say to the rest of the team, I am human. And here's the thing about my humanity. You know those core values? I'm going to violate them because I know I'm not perfect. And here's what I want from all of you. Here is my ask for all of you, every member of this organization. Please hold me accountable. If you see me violating a core value, call me out. That is level 5 leadership. That is the willingness to state that you will be the embodiment of those core values. Please help me do that. So when you tell a team, hey, visionary, are you willing to do that? That is a way to test whether those truly are the core values, because then they're going to be very, very careful about making sure that those are right before they get up in front of the audience and sit and make that kind of a commitment.
Yeah. No, that is awesome. And just ironically, this morning we do a weekly share as a team, and our state of the company is on Monday. We just had our quarterly last Friday. So I was thinking today, the share is rotating, and it was me to do the share. And I was like, all right, what's something I can do that's meaningful, that's super important, but I don't want it to be part of the state of the company because it needs to have its own thing. So we actually just in the past quarter updated one of our core values. So we went from the core value of own it, which was about personal responsibility, do what you say, and we switched it to get it done. And because really, like, own it is more integrity. It's like we just expect everybody to own their work and have personal responsibility. But get it done in our business is there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of unknowns, there's a lot of stuff, and really what we experienced in the last quarter is just it's a fear of like, well, I don't know who does this. How do we do this, that, and who do I ask? And we have to have a meeting to talk about this. And I push back on meetings. I'm like, the idea of getting it done is just pick up the phone and call somebody, right? Like I know you're trying to own it. We all want to own it. But own it can actually be, I failed and I own that. And I don't want to do it again. I want it to be more like, hey, let's just get stuff done. Yeah. And I purposely didn't do the get shit done because I think that's a little bit more of the trendy vibe. But it was like, no, we just want to get it done. And so I actually today rewrote the core values speech and read that to everybody today, and got to the end, and Josh, who's our senior brand designer, sits next to me, and he goes, I have chills. And it makes me emotional. I get chills thinking about that. But that was literally today, like how we're talking about how to do that, and the how do you live them out authentically and not gamify them to the point that it loses that authenticity, which is hard. I do think there's a I think if you look at it from a level 5 leadership perspective, that humility and being human and living those out is very natural. So I guess that's probably why good to great level 5 leadership became such a thing. Is it's not your high visionary, get it done. The humility part of level 5 leadership is huge. And so anyway, I felt today that it was very humbling for me even today just to hear an employee talk about how meaningful those values were.
Good for you.
And
that's a wonderful thing. Look, it's our willingness to be open is literally about being able to let go of beliefs and replace them with deeper, truer beliefs. And that's what you just did.
Yeah. So our 5 are get it done. Then we say be curious, be courageous, and be generous, and outshine. And the curiosity one is what you just said. Curiosity is letting go of being right. So it's detaching yourself from the outcome. And we're very blessed. I mean, we did have the opportunity of building the team from day one on EOS. So everyone who came into our organization understood this is a thing, and they get, what the heck is EOS on their first day. So we didn't have a big change management strategy to go through. We've had being able to build it from the foundational perspective. And it's cool when you feel like you're a part of a team and the right people are on the bus and everybody's excited. And it is true. It's just authentic. People,
Jamie, I'm also struck by something else here. When did you originally discover your core values?
So cool story. So
Just from a time standpoint, so you just went through that
yes,
situation where you modified it,
Yeah.
where you amended it, right? But when did you first have them, clearly identified? How far back?
so very very good question, and I think this is a really good story for other visionaries to hear. So I founded two companies, and I was running them both, and I knew in parallel one was going to have to give. You couldn't really serve two masters, and so when we decided to shut the first company down and go all in on what today is, it's called Wonder, I hired an integrator. So I have a co-founding partner. It was he and I. We hired an integrator who started May 18th of last year, and we had our focus day on June 6th with Andrew Geisel, our implementer. So we literally were like committed to this thing, hired the integrator who I'd known for 30 years, who is in the 90s on the integrator test. We have history. And we did it day one. And as much as I'm the visionary, and this was a company that I set out to create, and then I've, Mark has been part of that. He's my co-founder. But I brought the opportunity to him, right? I was like, hey, I see an opportunity for this. And then we brought Warren on. I had in my mind what I want the company core values to be. And I never shared them with anyone at that point in time. And I knew that in the focus day, we were going to do that exercise. And I went in my head with,
You were already decided.
I was already decided. And but I was very specific that I go 25 years ago, I had a business partner, and I landed on the two ideas of vision and values. And we had a different vision, and we valued different things, and that partnership didn't work out. And, I had nothing to do with EOS. Those were just two terms I've held on to for 25 years. So I know that I have values personally, and a company that you create has core values, and that team does, but it doesn't have to be a one-for-one. Like, my personal values should inform the company values, but it doesn't have to be like, these are my 5, therefore this is the company's 5. Mm-hmm. Or at least I think it doesn't have to be that way. So I went in to do the core values exercise, and I never said, these are mine. And Andrew facilitated a process with us where he talks about, what are the behaviors that you despise? And we did that collectively, and we ended up with 5 core values that were totally different, yet more true than what I had in my head. And that was June 6th of last year. And those, the essence of those was own it, curiosity, generosity, and courage. But we didn't have the last one, and I felt like something was missing. So we went 90 days on those 4. And then the second quarter, I just felt like there was something missing. And it has to do with a poise and professionalism that we just desire in our team. Everyone in our company is client-facing. So you've got to be able to stand up in front of a room and present and, sell ideas, not through selling, but helping clients realize that you're giving them good strategies and support.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so we ended up with that 5th one, calling Outshine. And that was really around the idea that it's not about over-delivering, it's not about ego or pride, but it's about showing up. And when you leave, clients are just left in wow and wonder with like, wow, this is really, you guys are really good. And that's because we love doing the work. It's not because we love the praise. We believe in the work that we do, and we think it helps clients really activate their brands from the inside out. So June 6th of last year to today, I announced that I changed one to the whole team. So that is 11 months, of marinating on those and living them out and testing them and all that.
There you go. And I think that's the beauty of EOS.
Yeah.
There is a cycle. 90-day cycle.
Inside the 90, yes.
Right? And that cycle creates the mechanism for repeatedly looking back in the mirror. Are these things correct? Because frankly, without that cycle, without some of the tools, without the discipline of the meeting pulse and the 90-day world in general, You could implement, and I've seen many companies do, something, it could be core values, could be a number of things, for which once it's in, it's unquestioned.
Yes.
And it just kind of sits there. And it can sit there for a very, very long time with people actually admitting and owning that, hey, that doesn't actually work anymore, but no one's got the energy to get up and do anything about it. You never fall into that trap.
Yeah,
It's always there in front of you every 90 days. Is it correct? Are these our core values? Are we living them? And generally, if it stands the test of you've got it wired in, you're hiring on the basis of them, you're firing on the basis of them, you're reeking of these things because you're recognizing and rewarding, it starts to come into play. And you'll feel in the organization a level of ease. It will not be as hard to get things done because there's so much heavy lifting going on from people showing up as their best.
Yeah, it is so true. I just say it mitigates all the drama. In time, it just mitigates drama. And too many organizations just have too much drama, and that can be culture. It can also be wrong people on the bus. But a lot of times it is more culture than the wrong people. And EOS allows you, I think, with clarity and vision and healthy, it mitigates drama. It just kind of evaporates is what I've seen.
Yeah.
Well, coming up here on the close, what's of the 20 tools in EOS, what's one of the tools that you feel is maybe least utilized but most valuable?
Least utilized.
Well, maybe I didn't phrase that right. Let's say undervalued. What's something that you really see your clients not necessarily grabbing as tight as they should?
Oh, that's easy. That would be clarity breaks.
Clarity breaks. Oh.
Clarity breaks would be one. Delegate and elevate would be another. I bring out those two because they require personal discipline. Those are not exercises. Those are not tools that the team necessarily does together, nor would I recommend them, being things like I'm imposing on, we're going to set a rock that everybody takes clarity break. No, you have to adopt personal discipline. And those are the two tools. The personal discipline of setting aside time for yourself in a very busy, ambitious organization is hard for a lot of people.
Yep.
The personal discipline of continuously working towards your unique ability, using the 5% solution, just a little bit better every quarter. The Delegate and Elevate tool is designed to do exactly that. And actually, it's those two things combined. I'm like, all right, clarity breaks. Here's a great example of a clarity break. Use the Delegate and Elevate tool.
Yes.
It'll take you about an hour to do it. Once a quarter, do that and get at least one thing off your bottom tiers delegated out. So that would probably hands down be the one.
Awesome.
Right? Because it really... you get rocks implemented. You can get scorecard. All the foundational tools are a team implementation, but those are individual. A person has to actually take those on themselves.
Very, very true. And I think that's, I haven't thought about it like that. And I think, and I also have lacked the personal discipline to do them with regular cadence. But when I do them, the gains have been huge just to give yourself a day and then realize how much you actually solved in 3 hours, Yeah. So Dave, there's been a great conversation. If someone wants to find you, what's the best way to do that?
There's my website. But there's my phone. You know what's the easiest way to get a hold of me is to call me.
What is that phone number?
It's my phone number, 248-881-9103. I can express it very easily. My email address is frankly too long for most people to write down. But my phone number, 248-881-9103 is the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Oh, awesome. And then if you're looking for your right fit client, if someone's listening today and you're really excited to work with Dave or talk about him, like what type of clients are you working with?
The ones who want to go on a heroic journey to be their very best, the ones who really are purpose-driven and have an ambition around not just their enterprise, but their life, those are the ones that I enjoy working with.
Awesome. Likewise here too. That makes the journey fun.
Yeah.
So, well, Dave, this has been awesome. Greatly appreciate your time, and look forward to talking again sometime and seeing you at EOS Worldwide next year as well.
Oh, yeah. At the conference, for sure. Thank you, Jamie. This was great talking to you.
Thank you.